The thing is, Gary, if life was just a string of miseries, then fine. It would make some sense what you're saying when I'm talking about life being interesting, not boring, and the fact that we can feel misery so we can reduce misery, and that would not make sense because all we would have is a stream of misery anyway. But the fact is, feeling pain, for example, when you smash your foot, helps reduce misery. Why? Because you feel miserable at that moment and therefore avoid the damage that you could have in the future, which is of benefit if your survival is of benefit. And we think it is, and that's why we find that a benefit. Okay? And life is not just a misery. And you're constantly pointing at someone with a really bad situation. It's like, well, they had all their legs cut off and had to live as a stump. Well, part of why I feel it's hypocritical to condemn life is in comparison to people like that. Someone like that can look at someone like you or I and say, oh, it's a bit fucking insulting that those people with so much going for them are going to whine about their tiny sadnesses, that they didn't get the lover they wanted, that they didn't eat favorite food every day, that, you know, that it looks pathetic. Okay, it looks pathetic, and it's a part of the hypocrisy of living and claiming not to value life. Okay, and you think that's not philosophical and it's just purely psychological? Well, I don't make the same distinctions that you do between psychology and philosophy, but that is philosophical. You have a contradiction in your system where you go on working to live and you say it's of no value. That's a contradiction. That's not philosophical. Why? Because it's not logical. Contradictions need to be addressed in philosophy. You can handle them, there's ways to handle them, relativism and so on, but they're not just to be ignored and just uh, defended as if, well, because it's more true. Well, no, it's not more true because you're not living by it. If it was a true philosophy, you would be able to live by it. But the fact that you can't live by it says something about whether it's a true philosophy. Now, I've said before, I think philosophy is about ways of living, ways of being peace of mind, and ways of thinking about life and living. So naturally, that sets up my idea of philosophy in this direction, that if you deny the question of living, if your answer to living is let's not, then I think it's very difficult to have a philosophy. A philosophy of death itself would be about life, because death is the absence of life. Okay? So I think it's very difficult to formulate such a thing, and very, very difficult to go on living and formulate one that advocates your own death.